It is not possible to say when everything had started. There was nothing around before the beginning. In our universe there was no beginning. Our galaxy, however, is different. It has a beginning, and it has an end. The timeline of the galaxy goes something like this. There is one beginning that is always the same. There are many different paths which can be taken at the center, which may lead to many different outcomes in the center. But the end is always the same. If you know how the galaxy begins and you know how it ends, you can effectively predict all outcomes in its center timeline. But this is only one galaxy, and our universe contains more than 1 billion galaxies. We, the Draconians, were the first to establish an empire in the galaxy in which you exist. And those who exist on your current planet Gaia refer to this galaxy as the Milky Way.
I am Draconian. I have a message for you. It is hidden in the subconscious of your mind. It will come to you when the time is right. It is not possible for you to understand my language. I use telepathy to communicate to you. Boy, this is not a dream. Wake up.
The boy woke up in a halfway state of confusion. The reptilian voice from his dream still fresh in his head. I was dreaming, he thought to himself. More like a nightmare. The boy looked around at his surroundings. There was nothing out of the ordinary. It was dark with a clear night sky. One could see the stars shining bright. The night air was cool, and the sound of crickets chirping. The boy had chosen to sleep under the stars. He didn't have much money to pay for a room, besides the weather was nice. He had a sleeping bag and a backpack full supplies that he needed to make a long journey. It took the boy a while to fall back asleep. He kept thinking about his encounter with the reptilian creature. He had never heard of Draconian before. A creature that can change shape without magic was strange indeed. As well as many, many thoughts that kept racing to the boy's mind. I've never heard of a galaxy. Why would heaven be full of reptiles? I know that people tell me these are trials, and I must endure. But I really do not understand. The boy closed his eyes and went back to sleep.
The Sol system was discovered by Draconian Empire about 4 solar cycles ago. 1 solar cycle is equal to that of 26,850 years, 6 months, and 3 days, as would be calculated from the planet Terra. However, from now on, when we refer to a solar cycle for the sake of math, we will be talking about approximately 25,000 years. There are other forms of measurement used to measure time in the galaxy in cycles. They start at the galactic scale, with the first being called galactic cycle. A galactic cycle is equal to 11.2 solar cycles, 300,725 years. Following the galactic cycle is the solar cycle. Next down on the list is the metric cycle. The metric cycle is equal to 1,000 years. Below the metric cycle is something called the genetic cycle, and the genetic cycle is equivalent minus 800 years on Tara. This was done and created by the Galactic Empire to give a perspective on time frames when referring to cycles. The most common cycles used when referring to timelines are solar cycles and metric cycles. Although sometimes you will hear references to galactic cycles and genetic cycles. After discovering the system of Sol, the first rocky celestial objects, they discovered where the moons that orbits the planets number 5 and number 6. It wasn't long before they discovered the 4th planet from the Sun, which was a rocky terrain and a small atmosphere. Not quite perfect for colonization, however, this planet would make very good outpost. And so the first planet in the system of Sol to have an outpost was the 4th planet, from the Sun. Very shortly after the discovery of the 4th planet, They had discovered the third planet from the sun. This was a utopia of paradise or reptilian creatures. It had an atmosphere and a temperature suitable to sustain reptilian life. As a matter of fact, this planet they discovered that already had existing indigenous life, however primitive. These indigenous creatures not only consisted of reptilian nature, as to their surprise they discovered coexisting with them were mammals. Very primitive, however, mammals was nonetheless. Because the indigenous creatures were not considered to be intelligent enough to matter. It was then determined that the first intelligent beings on this planet were that of the Draconian Empire, the more intelligent of the reptile race. The Draconian Empire had already made their mark on the galaxy, as they were expansionists of the first kind. They needed to expand in order to survive because the systems in which they existed were becoming overcrowded and resources expended. The Empire had expanded into the territory of other intelligent races. One of these races in which the Draconian Empire had expanded into was the race of men. The race of men could not stop their advance, however, they slowed it dramatically. The Draconians suffered many losses as did the race of men. Now the Draconians had to stop their advance and replenish their numbers and their resources. The third planet from the sun, Terra, also known as Gaia, was a godsend for the Draconian Empire. Existing in the Goldilocks zone, its center of gravity, and the fact that it had a natural electromagnetic field. An electromagnetic field can be created from technology, but it's not as easy to do as it may sound. It requires a tremendous amount of resources to start with and to keep it running, but it can be done. Very few planets in the galaxy, and I mean few, have a naturally evolved electromagnetic field. Some would say that the planet is alive. This is called the living planet, and is deserving of the title name Gaia. The Draconians start that they could use the indigenous species from this planet in order to replenish their numbers. Gaia was full of resources and which needed to be mined and returned for the use of the Empire. However, because travel does the galaxy was somewhat slow, it would take time to send word back to the home planet of Draconis in order to sustain backup support from the Empire. So the best means of defending this system was to stay hidden. And stay hidden we did. War is never pretty, but it is necessary for survival. It is essential to secure the Empire. And every species in existence with his own agenda has its own right to survive. So we the Draconians had acquired Gaia in the Sol system for our survival. We started a project on Gaia to genetically engineer a new species in our likeness using them as slaves to serve us. The new reptiles we created were to serve as soldiers for the Empire. However, we had gotten a hold of genetic DNA from the race of man and used it to create a new species of mammals. This species of sub-man were to serve as slaves for our cause, and work on the planet Gaia, helping us to retrieve minerals and natural resources to help advance Empire's objective. We had help from a race that we had conquered a long time ago. However, they did not realize that they had been conquered because they were very susceptible to mind control. This race from the Orion constellation, they were only able to reproduce by cloning themselves. They were near the end of their time, and they could clone anything they got their hands on, anything.